to Heroes Forge, a Heroes of the Storm podcast.
Welcome, Forgers, to episode 24 of Heroes Forge, a community-driven podcast all about Heroes of the Storm. This is your show host, Jeff Reynolds, and back in the Forger ring with me again this week, it's the co-host of the show, Kristen Ashton. Hello, and welcome back, Kristen.
Thank you so much, Jeff. It's great to be back in this chair again. How has your week been?
Oh, it's been good. There's tons of stuff. I mean, it's been good. There's been tons of, negative things around the Heroes community, but there's also tons of positive things. I mean, Medivh is coming, the whole launch of the new Hero League system this week. I mean, I'm so excited for that.
It's true, and it's one of those moments where it feels like the early jumpers on of Heroes who kind of weren't all that into it are taking their leave for different games. So that's going to leave a community that is battle-hardened and truly, truly loves this game. So I'm very, very excited to see what everything is going to reap from what it has sown.
Yeah, I really hope, and I'm crossing my fingers because we don't know if it's going to be good or not, but the new ranked play system, I'm hoping that really cools a lot of people's jets about the game. They go, oh, okay, this is starting to feel good, and then I hope they integrate, some sort of drafting system inside of the game that they can use in esports, and I think that'll really help bring people together over in the esports realm. I was devastated to hear about Cloud9 because, as you know, Cloud9 was my main team. I was all about Cloud9. And I know there's a lot of people out there that feel like that. And, when they posted that they're disbanding and they posted all the pictures of BlizzCon and everything that they were doing, I was just, I got the feels, and it made me feel like, who am I going to root for now?
Exactly. I can only hope, due to my closet setup now, that there will be another team that sports the blue and white. But we'll see.
Yeah, I don't want to have to change all my wardrobe. I got my Cloud9 shirt and I got all this stuff. So hopefully something comes up. And it's the darkest before the dawn, as they say. Maybe right now they're going to bust out and there's going to be, 10 new teams with these people from Cloud9 on it that come out, and, they're all equally as good, and there's a ton of competition and it feels really good again. I'm trying to be positive about it, and I hope that all happens.
Exactly. And there's a void at the moment, right? Because all of these big name teams are gone. So that leaves so much cool stuff to happen. And like we saw, for instance, at Heroes of the Dorm, when you get some new people in it, you see some really different ideas that you're not usually used to because of the meta.
Yeah. And I hope all of that happens. And I mean, there's tons of stuff surrounding Blizzard right now. The Warcraft movie, did you have a chance to see it?
I did, Jeff. Did you?
I did. And I want to open up my critique with, we won't have any spoilers, obviously. I mean, if you're a Warcraft fan, you know how most of it's going to go down and all of that. But I have to say that as a Blizzard fan and as a Warcraft fan, I did enjoy the movie. But I can see the criticisms that people are, tossing its way. And, it is an art form. It is out there as for people to, pick apart and to, dissect. So I get that and I feel it. But as a Warcraft fan, I was stoked to be sitting there. It was really cool to see the characters that, basically I grew up with on the big screen and in this story that were, everyone was seeing and all that. Well, what did you think?
I think it's fair, the people that are giving it 2 reviews. I think it was a solid 5 by itself for people who don't know Warcraft, who haven't played World of Warcraft. And I think for World of Warcraft players, we're looking at probably a 6. The human actors, apart from Lothar and Medivh, who I loved, it was boring to me. Mm-hmm. I did not enjoy the human parts. When we were in those parts, I was like, let's get back to the orcs. Let's just get back to the orcs, guys. The orcs were amazing. They cut corners graphically because, there was only so much of a budget to work with. But that being said, they really did put a lot of attention on the important scenes. Like certain moments with those orcs, those more emotional ones, were incredibly crafted. Yeah. Beautiful feats of computer engineering. But other times, not so much.
Yeah. Yeah, you hit the nail on the head with that, I think. And the good news, I mean, because I would like to see more Blizzard films, more mainstream films coming from the Blizzard universes that come out in your, local movie theaters and things like that. And so I'm excited to hear that the movie is doing very well overseas. People are really liking it. And so that gives me hope that they'll make more films and maybe take these criticisms or maybe even this cash that they're making from this movie and make the next Warcraft movie, hopefully, cross your fingers, even more awesome and, kind of break boundaries with it.
Yeah, and that's what I'm hoping too, because if you have kids, this movie is so much fun. Little Kristen was going nuts with the fantasy gore, the roughness. Black Hand, he was amazing.
Yeah.
The portal, the deep, I just wanted to have magic. I wanted to have 2 spines and giant skulls on my shoulders.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun. Kid Kristen would heavily support this movie.
Yeah, I think a lot of kids would, maybe people that aren't out there to just, because I have to be honest, when I sat down to watch it, I was ready to critique it, because it's something that we all love and really care about. So when I sat down to watch it, I was like, all right, let me pull out my notebook and my pencil.
I think we were all a little scared, and I definitely was scared it was going to be on par with or worse than the first Dungeons and Dragons movie, and It was better, which made me very happy.
It was better. Thank goodness it was better. It was. Yeah, and how cool would it be if they expanded? I really think that they could bring out, like we've talked about before, some sort of animated Overwatch film. I think it would do really well. I hope this doesn't shut them down completely, because there's some really good stories out there, right?
There are. And how many of us want to see Arthas on the big screen? And that story alone, it would drop the orcs basically, and it would be a human tale that, if done correctly, could really, really pull in an even wider audience, because, you're not isolating people that just can't feel emotions for monsters or orcs or trolls or undead, but humans.
Yeah.
They could get into.
And that's what TBK was saying last week, is he's hoping that they just plow through so that they can get to an Arthas story, because that would really hook a lot of people. I think that's probably that's a really solid storyline, story arc. I think it would be really cool. I couldn't agree more. Well, let's get on to the fun. Let's get on to why we're here. This is HeroesForge. Again, if this is your first time listening, welcome to the show. If you've listened before, welcome back. We're all about Heroes of the Storm. What we do is we take characters from any of the Blizzard gaming universes, including World of Warcraft, and we imagine what they'd be like if they were put into the Heroes of the Storm universe. The Heroes of the Storm universe is going crazy right now. There are characters all over the place. And Kristen, did you have a chance to see that there were some characters that were possibly quote-unquote leaked for coming future?
I did. I heard potentially Gul'dan.
Yeah, that one was kind of been brewing for a while, I think. They brought that up at BlizzCon and all that. I would love to see him, and there are other ones that are on this list, and if you're into not being spoiled, we won't get there. We won't explain all of that to you, but check out the post. I'll post it on the website so that you can check it out. Also, listen to the latest episode of Into the Nexus. They go through a ton of stuff that's happening in the Heroes of the Storm esports world, in the Heroes of the Storm upcoming characters that are being released and all that stuff. That in the latest episode, I believe it's 111, is really, really awesome and prime if you want to jump back in the hero scene. I know there's a lot of people that are coming back into it that haven't been a part of it because of the ranked play, and all those changes are happening, in like 2 days. So check out that post, and the Heroes of the Storm future, as always, is looking really bright.
It is. I don't think it's actually ever looked brighter. Let people doom and gloom all they want, but once it passes, we are going to be left with a community that has truly loved this game from the beginning.
Yeah, and we'll have all the level 10 master skins, and then those people will all come back and they'll be like, wait, this game is awesome. Have you been playing it? How'd you get all those cool skins? And we'll be like, haha, we stuck with it through all this craziness. So that's that. So speaking of, I think it's time. Let's go ahead and let's forge.
Let's forge.
Like I said before, we're all about bringing characters from other Blizzard gaming universes and imagining what they would be like in Heroes of the Storm. Kristen, why don't you fill everyone in on who you picked to forge this week?
All right, guys, we're going back to the StarCraft universe, and one of my favorite characters from StarCraft, Arcturus Mengsk.
Mengsk. Oh, when you picked this, when you sent it to me, it talk about the feels. I mean, it went back for me because it's been a while since I've dealt with Mengsk in StarCraft, and then of course in StarCraft 2 and all of that. But yeah, oh, what a crazy, like, his. Well, I'll let you tell everybody. Why don't you give us a little bit of a backstory on him so that we can all help us forge?
Certainly. And this first part was taken from the words of Michael Liberty. Arcturus Mengsk. There's a name that is synonymous with terror, betrayal, and violence. A living example of the ends justifying the means. The assassin of the Confederacy of Man. The hero of the blasted world of Core Hall 4. King of the universe. A savage barbarian who never let anything or anyone get in his way. And yet, he is charming, erudite, and intelligent. When you're in his presence, you feel that he's really listening to you, that your opinions matter, that you're someone important if you agree with him. It's amazing. I have often wondered if men like Mengsk don't carry around their own reality warping bubbles, and all who fall in are suddenly transported to another dimension, where the hellish things he says and does suddenly make sense. At least, that's the effect he always had on me. Now, it wasn't enough that Mengsk destroyed the society he was born into, nor was it enough to inadvertently see the creation of a human-Zerg hybrid. Mengsk was in all things ambitious and heartless enough to see to his success. Yet his pride was never misplaced. He was a genius, a savant, and a master of men. Only with the help of Reynolds was Kerrigan finally able to topple his overbearing regime once and for all.
Oh, that quote from Michael Liberty at the beginning of your little intro there is perfect. That's the writing in that is so good. People carrying around their own reality warping bubbles, and all who fell in suddenly transported to a dimension where everything that Mengsk was doing made sense. That is so crazy, and it just shows how manipulative he was in the StarCraft universe.
Which makes him great, and I love villains that do that, because usually their pomposity is justified 100%. They are smart enough to do that, and they do it. So they don't feel like some grandiose person who's overextending their means. They feel like they're somebody from the annals of history, a Caesar even, a Napoleon.
Yeah, it's so cool. And I mean, it really gives off the feeling of evil is in the eye of the beholder, right? So he thinks that everything he's doing, and if you transport it into his world, suddenly everything that he's doing is making sense to you. I mean, that he's all out for himself, right?
It is, and it's fun to read his history too, because he has a justified reason for everything he does. Sure, you don't have to agree with his methods, but there is a reason behind it. He's not just a madman. He's a scheming, smart man who knows exactly what he wants and will do whatever it takes to get it.
Whatever it takes. And how cool is that going to be to try to bring it over to Heroes of the Storm? Mengsk is somebody that is all over the suggested heroes that need to come into Heroes of the Storm. You can go anywhere. You can go to Heroes Fire. You can go and look at all of those builds. I mean, people have done tons of really awesome builds for him. And so I went through some of those and I thought, I got to try to make mine a little different. And I'm just really excited to try to bring him to the Nexus because there's so many different directions you can go, right?
It's true. This one took a lot of scheming. I had to chat with some people because he's such a challenging person to try and turn into a hero in the sense that we know within the Nexus.
oh, for sure. And then you look at some of those other heroes that are in the game that we always talk about, like, you know, the Abathurs or the Lost Vikings or Chogals, and how hard must have been to create them inside of the Nexus. So it's a really, really fun challenge. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started. We're going to talk through each one of our kits. Kristen made one, I made one. But more importantly, Kristen made a totally awesome overlay for our Twitch stream. If you don't watch the show live or you don't check out the VODs on our YouTube channel, check it out because it is so cool. It's going to detail all of the abilities that we chat through as we chat through them. So tipping my cap to that because it is really cool. And again, we stream every Sunday night live on twitch.tv/Amove TV, 7 p.m. Pacific. So check it out sometime and come and join us in the chat room because we love to chat with you guys after the show too. So the first thing we're going to talk about is where this character fits in as a role classification in both of our builds. Kristen, what were you thinking?
My first choice was a support, but specialist-ish. I mean, you know how Medivh, he's a specialist, but really he's there to support his team?
Yeah.
Kind of like that.
Yeah, that's a great point. I mean, there are a lot of characters in this game that are classified in that tiny little role bubble. Tassadar, Tyrande, you know, those characters where you see their role classification. If you're brand new to the game, you jump in there thinking they're going to do something, but they do it in a different way or they don't do it at all. So I think it's that's a really good caveat to put on your role classification. It's funny that you thought support, because when I was going through this, I thought, you know what would be really different if I made him a support character. So I chose support. And so you're going specialist / hyphen support, and I'm going to try to go support with that whole same sort of feeling to it. So this will be really fun. Let's get into some traits. I'll start with my trait first. My trait is called totalitarian. So if Mengsk is known for anything, it's his brutal and unwavering rule. The oppression and tyranny that created this rule ultimately led to his downfall. In Heroes of the Storm, I would imagine that Mengsk would use his superb skills of manipulation to suppress the enemy team. Similar to the way that Abathur plays, Mengsk would not be a hero on the battlefield that would be in the center of the fight. He would be set up at the beginning on the battlefield at a huge podium just next to the friendly core. He is not able to move, but can use all of his abilities while he's at this podium. From here, he can use the propaganda to influence the tide of battle. This is where I went a little off the wall here. If he is defeated by the enemy team, like if his actual toon is defeated, he is not able to respawn.
Oh, so if they find his podium and they take it down, he's out?
Yes, now, it's right next to the core. So I did this because I wanted him to be able to be defeated. And if he always constantly lived next to the core, it wouldn't really be possible if he wasn't, if he could just come back to life. I'm thinking like the feeling of Abathur. Nothing feels better than finding an Abathur in a bush somewhere and taking him out before he can slap you down, right?
I completely agree. I'm always like, oh, I found him, guys, I'm going. And usually I'll get him, but sometimes I'll sacrifice myself in the process.
Seeing the Abathur cooldown on the top bar is such a great feeling if it's on the enemy team, because you're just thinking they're all about timing, right? They're all about, spamming and getting things out there as fast as they can. And if they're on a cooldown, it doesn't help them. So I didn't want him to be able to move at all. I wanted to kind of have him broadcasting this whole, propaganda. They always talk about propaganda and all of his lore and how he was a master of it. So I wanted him to have that feeling of he's manipulating the battle, but not necessarily physically part of it.
Exactly. He is the person who is playing the game of chess. I wouldn't say he's a god necessarily, but he's definitely one of those higher powers, and the people on Earth are merely the pawns in his game. Now, for the podium, is it something he carries out with him, or does he have two little lackeys that build it for him that he steps up onto?
Oh, that's really cool. I think he should have like 2 Marines carrying it out for him or something at that very beginning part, and maybe it takes the entire time before the battle starts, right? So like you're imagining, how you go and you go up to the gate and you're going around in circles waiting for the battle to start. Maybe it's just a really cool, slow process where they're setting up his podium and it takes that full 10 seconds to get it set up just to kind of have that feeling of a totalitarian, really, just, ruling this battlefield.
I love it. And could you imagine too if he had a little van with his face plastered on the side, little flags. Now this van wouldn't get XP or anything, of course. It wouldn't. But you could just drive it around the map when you were bored. Like maybe your team wiped or something. And you
right.
Just, vote for Mengsk. Vote for Mengsk.
Oh, wow. Yeah. Well, I'm not sure if he would even need a vote, right? He could just kind of tell people, I'm here.
Mengsk is watching. Mengsk is watching.
Your accent could not be better. It's perfect. Go ahead, Kristen. Tell us what your trait for your version of the of Mengsk is.
Great minds, Jeff. Mine's called Emperor of the Dominion, but Mengsk's fighting days are long over. Preferring now to rule from on high. Instead of being on the field, Mengsk's head is featured as a small holograph on a probe that moves around the battleground in his stead. When destroyed, it takes the full death timer duration to rebuild and send back out.
Oh, cool. So is he physically on the battlefield too, like somewhere, or is it just the probe?
No, he's up in his spaceship somewhere. It's just the probe.
Oh,
and
that's
you
cool.
know how in StarCraft 2 his giant head would show up?
I do.
Yeah.
That is very, very cool. So does the probe move at like a normal walking rate, or does it move faster, or what do you think?
Correct. It would be a normal walking rate. However, I guess we'll be doing the mounts next, but the mount would be little jets would come out and kind of putter along. Although it would have to be a bit cooler than that, right? I don't think Mengsk would allow for puttering on his
No,
probe.
it would be like rockets. Wouldn't move too fast, but it'd be like awesome rockets that play some sort of theme song as he's moving through. Completely give away his position, so maybe not the theme song. But that's his mounting. That is a great idea. Okay, so that fits the lore for me so well because I don't see him on the battlefield in Heroes at all. So him not even being there, or having to rebuild, and maybe are you thinking there's like something next to the core, something that's rebuilding his little thing each time that he dies, so he's not coming back like all the other heroes do?
Exactly. And that was the challenge, right? Because you were clearly on the same page there. And I swear, audience listening, we did not collaborate on this at all. This literally is great minds thinking alike here. But yeah, and that was a challenge because the Mengsk that we know was not a fighter, even if, I guess, retconning made him studied under a master swords fighter or something. It didn't feel right.
Right. It doesn't feel right. And that's the creepiest part about it. Ruling this bloodbath of battles, but not ever really being a part of it, from what I know. That's so cool. On my side, he's not going to mount. Obviously, he'll live on his podium, and I just want to see him up there, like pointing and giving orders and shouting things out. So I was not going to move. Not going to move at all. Okay, let's move into basic abilities, because those traits are going to come up with some killer builds. I want to hear your first basic first, Kristen. What is it?
First basic, we're going with Master Propagandist. And due to the oratorical skills of Mengsk, his team is spurned on, buffed with increased attack damage when in range of the probe.
All right. So that's totally like a William Wallace kind of moment where they're all around the probe, so they just have a bonus attack damage.
Exactly, and I would imagine Mengsk is talking in the background, spawning his troops on, or maybe it's a little fuzzy because you gotta hear the sound of the StarCraft universe, but you're gonna fight these foes and you're gonna kill them.
The voice actor for him is so good, right? All the voice acting, I think, in StarCraft is, it's above par. It is so good. And that is part of the feels of the game when you're in there. And I think we talked about this before, but I'm going to say it again. Overwatch has great sound design. It is so good, knowing where heroes are. And I think Heroes does it well, kind of trying to convey those heroes universes through sound, and that's not easy. And so I think if he was in the game, he would have to have that cool sound, gritty, like you said. It would be really neat.
Exactly. It would have to be reminiscent of how he talked to you in that first StarCraft game. And then, of course, how you hear him in StarCraft 2.
Oh, for sure. I mean, that's so cool. Okay, so they're getting an intact or an increased attack bonus while they're around the probe. So it's passive.
Exactly. It's kind of like Brightwing's passive heal.
Right.
Pulse. Yeah, just
Very
like that.
cool. Love it. Is there a visual to it too, or is it just maybe if you're the friendly hero that you're around the probe?
Oh, if they're buffed. You could take it crazy where they have like a tiny green Mengsk head whispering in their ear, but it would probably be better if they had like a green aura around where they stand. Would probably be a bit cleaner.
I'm thinking that that's a good idea, because then the enemy team, I mean, it gives them an opportunity to have to, they would know that Mengsk is, Mengsk is there buffing them, so they would look for the probe. Maybe if the probe was hiding in, some sort of bush or something, it would be beneficial for them to look for it if they knew that the enemy team was getting buffed by it, right?
Definitely. And of course they could hear it as well. You'd listen for the static, for his calming voice. I mean, maybe you wouldn't want to kill it because it just sounds so nice. Maybe you would want to destroy your enemies to the sound of their own leader, because he'd be able to hear everything.
Ooh, that's deep. I love it. Let's get into my first basic. I called it Persuasion. And over here, it's another kind of great minds moment. This ability gives Mengsk the ability to recruit other players to his cause. The player globally selects a hero on the battlefield, friend or foe, and gives them a buff or debuff. For friendly units, it gives a buff to their attack speed and health regeneration. This is visually represented by a Terran Dominion banner flying behind them as they move and attack. The hero can only have one mark of Mengsk's Persuasion at a time. If they use a healing fountain, Hearthstone back to base, or are healed by a friendly healer, they will lose their mark of Persuasion, and it will go on a death timer as if Mengsk had died. But each player has their own timer for Persuasion as the battle continues. For enemy heroes, if they're given a mark of Persuasion, their attack speed and health regen are decreased. If they Hearthstone, hit a healing fountain, or are healed by a friendly healer, their debuff is removed and also placed on a timer. So it's confusing. In my mind, it works, which is with most things.
That's the important part, right?
So I'm thinking, right, Mengsk is not represented in my build on the battlefield at all. He is purely buffing heroes. Like an Abathur hat, if you take out the hero, the Abathur hat goes away, and then Abathur can immediately go onto another unit, right? Well, in my build, Mengsk is a little different, where he can only put a Persuasion buff on a friendly hero every so often, and that just happens to be the same length as a death timer. So if I'm on top of ETC, or if I've given ETC Persuasion and he's fighting and he happens to die, then I can't put it back on him until that death timer, comes up. Now that wouldn't be too big of a deal if he dies, right? Because he's going to come back and I'm going to be able to throw it right back on him. But if ETC is healed or hits a healing fountain or Hearthstone's back, it loses that Persuasion too.
Gotcha. So it's not that you have a cooldown on Persuasion. It's that the person who had Persuasion put on them now has the cooldown. But
Right.
instead of being a short cooldown, 2-3 seconds, it's actually the length of a full death timer.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. So maybe like over each one of the heroes, it'll have like a countdown until you can put Persuasion back on them. So I'm just thinking that I want it to be powerful. So I want people to think, if I hit the healing fountain right now, I'm going to lose this. Or that enemy team member, or let's say we're playing against Mengsk, and someone has Persuasion on my team, go back and hit the healing fountain so that you can lose that. I mean, it would really kind of mess up the tide of battle in my mind.
Yeah, and visually that would be such a cool way also for Mengsk to draw attention to certain heroes. Because could you imagine playing Mengsk and you're the one calling the shots as to who needs to die? You just put a flag on an enemy and foe, and everyone on your team knows that that's the person that they need to go for.
And then that person's trying to get out to get the debuff gone. And I wanted it to kind of throw a little bit of chaos in there because he is chaotic.
Yes.
I definitely think that. So it gets into the other basic abilities that I have. My second basic is called Whatever It Takes. And persuading a follower to battle and inspiring them to continue battling even when the odds are stacked against them is a trait that is most important in a battlefield leader. Mengsk does this through fear. With this ability, the Mengsk player selects a friendly hero and they will ignore all damage that is done to them for a short amount of time. After the timer is up, they will instantly take all of the damage that was done to them while this ability was active and possibly die.
Ah, I like it. There's that twist of evil right at the end there.
Yeah. So, I mean, you're fighting through. It's like that story that they always talk about where, you know, you run up and your child might be stuck underneath a car and you get the strength of, 50 men to be able to lift this car up and pull your child out from underneath it. Well, Mengsk is going to give you that strength, but you're going to pay for it in the end. So, I mean, if this was timed right, you could use it to get the kill or, chase somebody down and that person's going to die anyway. So you make them invulnerable and they're just going to die at the end of it. So, I mean, it might be OP. It might be cool, though.
No, that would be great, because how many times are you playing a hero in a situation where you basically don't have any escapability? However, if you could live just a little longer, you could maybe get 1 or 2 kills before you go down. I mean, Arcturus, for instance, I hear all the time that Arcturus, you go in and you're in. Yeah. Rarely are you allowed to get out.
Yeah. That was my thought there. What were you thinking for a second basic?
I like it. For this one, I'm going with a little disruptor pulse. When activated, the bot sends out a far-reaching pulse of energy that disables all abilities for a brief period of time. So basically, a quickly activatable silence that can go out regularly.
Ooh, that's good for heroes that we got that we don't like.
Gotta trace around the other team.
Oh, yeah. I feel like there's a whole bunch of people that are like, we should develop this thing like it'll blind people or give them silences because it's an issue. And silences, I mean, they're powerful.
They are. They can make and break group engagements, and we don't really have any silences that you can steadily pulse out. And this isn't a silence I can see lasting a long enough time to really just decimate an entire enemy team, but long enough that it jilts their progress. So they're going forward. Oh, we're silenced. We got to jitterbug back for maybe a second, maybe less. Okay, we can go forward again.
Yeah, but it's an annoying thing, right? It's got that murky feel to it where you're just, constantly popping that bubble and going away. You're constantly silencing people because it's on a basic, right?
Exactly. Or Johanna's blinds, Lily's blinds. Oh.
Crazy. Yeah, it's the same sort of feel. Or, yeah. I love the idea of that little probe being able to do that. So the visual on that, describe that. What were you thinking it would look like?
Oh, just a simple little, probably a blue energy wave, so you'd be able to see it coming, and people could jump out of the way if they were fast enough to. But maybe, like, there's a little Mengsk can that comes up and pushes a button, or each time he does something with the probe, his hands.
Yeah, so you can, like, see him doing it. No, I get it. That's so cool. Oh, he's just so demonic, like, the way he smiles and looks and stuff, and just as a hologram is too cool. What were you thinking for his third basic ability after that one? That's a really good one.
For the third, we had to go with the psi emitter. Not one to ignore the prowess of his enemies, Mengsk uses the Zerg to help win the battlefield. When placed, this emitter sends out a signal that draws out any nearby Zerg. Appearing seemingly out of nowhere, these Zerg will begin attacking anything in their path. Bigger, more powerful swarm will begin to arrive the longer it goes without being destroyed. However, it cannot be placed behind your own walls so that the enemy can't get to it, destroy it. It's got to be right in a fair place that people can get to.
So it doesn't go out of control.
Exactly.
So does it last for as long as it lasts until, it gets taken out?
It does. I want it to be a serious threat if it's not dealt with. Kind of like Murky, right? He's not too bad if you have someone continually killing him, but if you let him lay alone, or Sylvanas too, if you leave them alone, they will destroy you.
Oh yeah, or even like Abathur's nests.
Monstrosity? Oh, and the nests, yes!
Yeah, and the monstrosity too, but the nests last, right? And you have to sometimes replace them down, I believe. I haven't played a bunch of Abathur, but that's the same kind of feel, right? The Zerg are just crawling out of this thing and just going straight to fight, right?
They just keep coming, and they pile up, and they pile up, and someone better be babysitting this thing, or else it is going to wreck.
Oh, and the lore behind that is so sick. That is so cool.
Yeah, I could not put it in there.
Oh, no, definitely. Now that you say that, I just think, how could you not? It is so Mengsk, just to, do whatever it takes. Like we said before, it's just, summoning these creatures to come and fight for him no matter what. It's so cool. My third basic is not as cool as that, but it's called Hologram, so it's kind of on the same plan.
It's still pretty cool.
That being cool is also in the eye of the beholder, I think. But with this ability, the Mengsk player selects a friendly minion on the battlefield that carries his message. This minion must be selected before it reaches the keep wall and will not be visible to the enemy team. If this minion reaches the enemy team's structures, they will release a small hologram bot or probe that projects an image of Mengsk giving a speech. This speech is given to the enemy team's minions as a pushing merc camps. Each time an enemy minion or merc is destroyed near the speech probe, they will respawn for the friendly team, sort of like Zool skeletons.
You said this wasn't cool. I'm so disappointed now. I can't believe anything you say anymore. This visual is amazing. It would be adorable, tiny Mengsk.
Yeah.
And I love the idea that it would res them and turn, the Zool-like, yes.
Yeah, I want it to be like this thing where he's empowering people. I was thinking originally that maybe it just converts them before they die. So like right before they die, maybe they just, all for Mengsk, and they turn around and start fighting on the other direction. That's the kind of feel I wanted it to have. Just be able to persuade, which is also, like we talked about at the beginning. Sorry, I'm all over the page here, but I'm thinking this is like a specialist ability in my mind, where you're focusing on the mercs and the minions on the battlefield. So that's not really falling in the support realm, but I think it's him. So I think that's where I would put it.
It is. I totally agree. And there would be plenty of room for it because we've got Zool and we've got Sylvanas with possession. I can't think of any others that force minions to fight for you.
Yeah, you can obviously lock a whole bunch of minions down using different abilities and things like that, but you're right. I love when you're just turning the tide of battle like that. And, it'll have that feeling in my mind like Towers of Doom when you have lost all three of your forts on that and it's just constantly firing, skulls at your core. And the whole team is saying, we have to do something about this. Like, we have to get over there and do that and take those out. I want Mengsk to have that same feel like, oh, he's got a hologram in the bottom lane and it's turning all of our minions and they're pushing that lane. And also, Raynor is down there and they're taking things out really fast. We got to get down there and do something about it. So, and something to counter that with Mengsk would be to just be up on all of your lanes. Because if your minion that's carrying the speech doesn't make it to a structure, then it's not going to pop. So that was my counter to it.
Yeah, that's a very good point. And of course, as long as there's a babysitter that is totally aware of what Mengsk can do and is always on the lookout for what's going on, that would neuter his abilities pretty hard.
Yeah, it would. Maybe too much. That's a good point. But yeah, it's just an idea that I had. And these are all awesome basic abilities, Kristen. It's so cool. I can't wait to hear the heroics. But before we get into that, I want to thank our patrons that are supporting the show over at patreon.com/HeroesForge. Thank you guys so much. It is so awesome to have your support. And if you'd like to support the show, head on over to that site and you can check out all of our awesome supporter goals that we have. Like we always talk about, we want to start forging battlegrounds and we want to start, letting you guys pick who is on the show. And that will be all made possible possible by our supporters over at patreon.com. So thank you again. And if you've given the show a 5-star rating on iTunes, thank you, thank you, thank you. It is a great way to promote the show and to get the show out there to more people and for them to find it when they type in Heroes of the Storm inside of iTunes. So thank you for doing that. And if you love the show and you haven't done it yet, head on over to iTunes and make sure you leave a little comment and we'll give you a shout out on the show. Also, I just want to remind everyone that we are available on all of your favorite broadcasting podcast networks. We're on Stitcher, Google Play. We also have the RSS feed up on the website. If there's something that you want to listen to us to that we are not on, let us know and we will do our best to get on there. Let's get on to the best part of the show. Let's talk about the heroics.
Heroic.
All right, I'm going to go first because I think my 2 heroics, the first one is kind of meh, but the second one is really cool. So I'll start with the first one. I'm calling it insurance policy. And this is directly from the last cutscene that he is in. And I'm saying that he's going to be able to have a keystone, like one of those giant relics that's a tower placement on the battlefield that does massive damages, lightning damage to enemies that enter its range. The obelisk would robotically come up from the ground and begin shaking and striking nearby enemies with lightning. The keystone would be able to be destroyed by the enemy team, and it's also on a timer.
Classic Mengsk.
Right?
That's all I gotta say.
It is, and that last scene, I mean, did you get a chance to watch that last cutscene with Kerrigan?
I have watched that last cutscene more times than I think I will ever admit to anybody. I love that cutscene. Not the part where she floats away, all silly, and I'm gonna go sacrifice myself now. No, the fight, the brutalness of it. It's just, she finally gets him, and it's so good.
Yeah, and you want him to light that cigar at the beginning. You want him to just take it, and then when he's got that last little obelisk trick up his sleeve, he flips that thing up, and it's just got the button that he presses. I mean, it's so cool, and I wanted that animation on the battlefield of having that floor open up, and you don't know what's coming out. You know what I mean? I wanted that.
I love it, and it works so well. Now, would he push his button back at the base at his podium?
For sure, and he would say something, that Mengsk would say, and only Mengsk would know.
Players have to buy a special remote control that looks like the thing and push it?
Yes, and it would be Bluetooth too. So your computer would have to be Bluetooth compatible.
Okay.
You would have to.
Just wanted to make sure we're doing this right, if we're doing it at all.
If we're going to do it, we're going to do it right. And you hook up Bluetooth and you flip the little lighter switch and you press it, and that's the only way to activate that heroic. And if you can't do that, then you don't take the first heroic in my build.
You can't even get Mengsk.
That's he comes in the collector's edition. I love it. What were you thinking for his first heroic?
Let's go with Keystone. I liked the name of yours, insurance policy. That's a bit more artistic than mine is. Mine's just like, Keystone, we're doing it. Finally assembled, Arcturus can now wield the power of the Xel'Naga, turning the powerful Keystone against those that would oppose him. When activated, the Keystone is lowered onto the battlefield. Bolts of power shoot outward, stunning and dealing damage to all nearby enemies for a set period of time.
Ooh, so you're thinking the stun.
Yeah, so kind of like ETC's Mosh Pit. For that brief period of time, whoever on the enemy team is close to the Keystone, they're just locked down and they can't do anything about it.
Still targetable.
Yes.
And is the drone still able to fly around, or his little hologram, is it still able to move, or is he part of this obelisk?
I think the drone wouldn't be able to use any of his abilities, but instead Mengsk would be in the back going, ha, 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 just laughing, and you could, skirt around the enemies, really tick them off.
Oh, that's great, though. Oh, and the lockdown. I mean, talking about that cutscene, it locks Kerrigan down. She's super powerful in that last part, as she shows at the very end when she, impales him and takes him down finally. But she gets locked down by this keystone, which is probably, it's one of the strongest artifacts in the StarCraft universe. That's how it's, portrayed. So I think that's really, really cool, right?
Oh, I like it. And I mean the fact that we both again have the keystone. Clearly Arcturus is one of those great villains, not only because he's so expertly crafted and written, but because the visuals that he evokes are relatively uniform, right? There are
Oh yeah.
specific things that everybody associates with Mengsk.
Yeah, I think that's a great point to bring up, and those are the kind of heroes I think are awesome in Heroes of the Storm, are the ones that you look at that hero and you say, this is how they should be, and that's how they are. Then you have the heroes in there that are a little gray, right? Like we talked about before, where Karazim, could go a couple of different ways, and they went one direction with it, and some people are going to think that he should go a different direction, and all of those kind of things. So with Mengsk, I don't think there would be any sort of there's no gray area really. I mean, he's pretty evil dude.
He is. He's loud and he's proud.
That especially brings us into my next heroic, my second heroic. I'm calling this one Emergency Broadcast. This is a little crazy, so hear me out.
Okay.
They say a man never really knows himself until his freedom has been taken away. When this ability is activated, Mengsk sends out an emergency broadcast to all enemy players. This broadcast is a propaganda message telling them that their days are numbered, or something in Mengsk, evil language. This message lasts for only a few seconds, but the video takes up over 75% of the hero's screen, not letting them see what's happening on the battlefield.
Oh, that's just cruel, man. That's just cruel. But it's brilliant because we have Gorge, Stitch's Gorge, the kind that eats up the screen.
Yeah.
We've got Dahaka's Isolation, which blinds you to a good portion of the screen. Anything else?
I think I really want it to be an oh crap moment. Like, I cannot see what is going on, and you're just spamming your abilities. You're still, fully capable of doing whatever it is you're doing, and I'm guessing the way to counter this would be, throw a mosh pit up or something when you can't see, and it's obviously not going to last for long, as sight is the number one, thing in this game, being able to see where you're at or what you're doing, and I'm imagining that, like, it shows the corners of the screen still, so you can see on the sides what's going on, but not in the heat of the battle of the moment that's going on in the middle. And no matter how you move your camera, if you're not locked camera, you still have this big old Mengsk face giving a speech right in the middle of your screen.
I love it. So it's a picture within a picture.
Yes.
And it just follows you around, trying to break your spirit. Ooh.
Yeah.
I like that.
Maybe if they had the resources to do it, it could be an actual closed caption feed of where Mengsk is on by the core. So if there's a friendly hero, he could photobomb the back of this thing.
He could totally do that. Could you imagine if all the good team were dancing around Mengsk, and then you get this demotional message?
Yeah, that'd be pretty crazy. And I think it would be maybe too OP. It's pretty powerful to not be able to see what's going on. Especially...
Never too OP. This is our mind world here.
Yeah,
you know
right.
what? Nothing is too OP in this realm.
It'd have to get, you could think of the combos that would go with this. You could do some serious damage if they couldn't see and just started clicking, around their screen. So that was my thought. What were you thinking for your second heroic?
I'm going with something called The Departed. Sometimes situations go bad, and Mengsk, though prideful, understands the strategy of a tactical retreat. He also understands the importance of bait. In a split second, Mengsk can teleport all but one of his teammates to a specific location on the map. This is uninterruptible, and none of the heroes being moved can be hurt.
Ooh. Oh man, I'm feeling the
in
salt
honor of
already.
Kerrigan,
Yeah.
my girl.
It's great. So, questions. Does he get to choose which character is left behind?
He does.
Ooh, that's brutal.
He has total control over who gets left behind.
Oh, that's so cool. So they can't say no. It's not a medevac dropship here. They can't say I'm not getting in. And where did you say they teleport to?
He can teleport them anywhere.
So like a medevac in that respect.
Correct.
Okay. Very cool and salty. I mean, I can see those players getting salty, but that is the character, right?
Exactly. But I mean, imagine the cool combos, right? Because there are other global heroes. You have Bright Wings, you have False Ads, you've got Abathurs.
And Dahakas, yeah.
Yeah, Dahakas too. So it could work with a good team comp, but sometimes you just want to get in there and mess up somebody's day. And I think this would really mess up somebody's day.
Absolutely. It depends on the direction you're going too. I mean, it could mess them up on either end of it. Like the place that you're teleporting to and the place you're teleporting from can really mess both people up, I guess.
That's a good point. I didn't even think of the placing them messing them up, but you're absolutely right. I was just envisioning the leaving the Kerrigan behind. But yeah, you could totally drop your team in a very bad situation and just laugh your way to the bank.
Don't know why you'd ever do that, but you definitely could do that. Oh, that is so good.
Maybe if you're role-playing a bit too hard as Mengsk, I'm not sure.
Yeah, that's one thing I hope doesn't ever come into Heroes is a role-playing servers or places you can play where you have to be these characters. And, I mean, just imagine the role-playing conversations over voice chat between Diablo and Nova.
That would be hilarious. And these would be dedicated roleplay servers, right? So let's go with it. So Mengsk would want victory. So I guess he wouldn't screw over his teammates. Nova would probably generally play like Nova usually does. Diablo?
He wants victory too, right?
Yeah, that's true. I think he'd be willing to work with that.
Just as a side note, I want a Diablo 3 skin for Diablo in the game, but I don't think that's going to happen because of silhouette stuff, but I just thought I'd say that.
Oh, I mean, if they kept the back spines, they could probably pull it off, and the tail, but I totally get what you're saying about the silhouette. It is a pretty different one, isn't it?
Oh, yeah. She's like super thin, and that Diablo in the game is the Diablo 1 and 2, the bigger version of it. Well, speaking of skins, let's talk about Mengsk skins. If we wanted to get a specialty crazy skin for Mengsk, what would it be? On my end, I could not think of a better one other than a Frank Underwood skin from House of Cards. Just standing in the back, being manipulative, and just being Frank Underwood.
Oh, well, would he shave for this, or would he still keep his wonderful beard?
Oh, no, he'd be, the whole Lex Luthor look, the whole shaved head and everything. That's what I'm imagining. And he would have the same accent, because Frank Underwood has that southern accent, and he would be up on his podium just doing his thing.
I love it.
And the public service message would be Kevin Spacey.
Well, they would have to hire him, and Kevin Spacey would have to voice Mengsk at this point, too.
Very true. What were you thinking for his crazy skin?
I was thinking, since it's a little probe, it would be the evil co-pilot from WALL-E.
Oh, that's great.
No!
Yeah.
So the propaganda probably wouldn't sound as scary, but the co-pilot would be fun.
Oh, that's totally cool. The drone idea or the little probe idea is so cool because it's so different than what we see right now. I mean, that represents your hero on the battlefield. It's just this little probe, and I'm thinking how cool it would be where you could talent into it at some point where you could get 2 probes.
That would be amazing. And would you be able to talent into yours for 2 podiums?
Yeah, the Mengsk's twin brother. Or his son.
Or maybe he just wants to change locations. You gotta meet the folk. You can't just stay in one situation.
Yeah, and then his son would be another great character to bring into the game. I mean, different but similar, but I mean, there's tons of characters. I mean, in this one, I definitely can say Mengsk has been forged. I mean, looking through these abilities, it's unbelievable to me that we are so on the same page with this without even chatting about it. I mean, the fact that he's an evil dweller that, works through holograms, isn't actually on the battlefield, has a keystone tower that can, disable enemies and deal damage, doing like all of these propaganda and these crazy abilities to, bring the other team down and also buff your team's support / specialist slash, assassin. Some of these abilities are doing major damage. I mean, it is just a cool hybrid, right, Kristen?
It is, and I like the idea that neither of us, no one out there, neither of us wanted Mengsk on the battlefield. It's just, like we discussed in the beginning, that's not his character. So how do you create a hero for Heroes of the Storm that isn't a bodily presence on the battlefield? And we know they can do it, right? Abathur, sort of. I mean, he's got to be there to soak, but he's rarely there physically in fights.
Yeah. And I've seen, like I said before, some other builds, and a really cool build that I saw a couple that were like this, where Mengsk would actually play the game as if it was like StarCraft. So they generate, resources instead of mana. And you're playing it and you're placing things on the battlefield like you would in StarCraft. I've seen a couple of builds like that, which I thought was an awesome idea. I've heard some other builds, there's just some really cool ideas that you can do with this character that just, like you said, take him out of the battlefield and make him a different presence.
Exactly. And the StarCraft idea is so cool because then you'd actually get kind of the puppeteer, the chess master kind of idea. But we'd have to worry about the pathing. I started the original StarCraft and I'm going to play through this game. But those fire bats and some Marines, I tell them to go, and they, like, two of them will wander off in the direction, and I'm just going, no, you know what? You guys have fun.
Oh, I need to play that again because in a way it's fun. Right?
Yep, nobody was lying about that bad pathing. I'm not even to the Protoss one with the Dragoons that were apparently atrocious. I can't even imagine what bad is compared to these Marines.
Are you playing it on stream?
No, just kind of a personal project at the moment.
That's a good project, though.
Otherwise, this stream would be running 24/7.
That's right. Well, tell everybody, where can they find you on the interwebs, Kristen?
On the interwebs, I am known as Dream Destroyer, DRMDESTRYR, over at Twitter, Twitch, and YouTube. And also my battletobebetter.weebly.com fitness and health blog, where this week I went over a brief history of bodybuilding.
Oh, cool. I think Mengsk would be part of Battle to Be Better. I mean, that just sounds like a great spokesperson for Battle to Be Better.
He definitely used it as a slogan. Now, he wouldn't personally believe in it because he's already the best. But right. I'm sure, as you say, propaganda, it would totally get people jazzed. And, not that I've ever read or studied on propaganda and how to incite the flames of motivation in people.
Hey, flames of motivation when it comes to working out is a serious thing, so I think that's a good thing to have studied. You can find me here right on HeroesForge. A couple of places you can find us. You can find us on YouTube at youtube.com/HeroesForge. We post all of the video of all of the live recordings that we do every Sunday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on twitch.tv/Amove TV. Check out our website if you haven't already. It's called HeroesForge.club. Over there, we post all of the old episodes that we've done. We're on episode 24 already. I cannot believe it. There are some really, really cool episodes over there to check out. Also, you can follow us on Twitter. We're at Forge Heroes over on Twitter. That's where we announce what hero we're going to be forging at the end of the week and kind of give you a little bit of an insight on who that will be. Make sure you download the show on iTunes or your favorite podcasting app. And if you'd like to support the show, again, you can support us at patreon.com/HeroesForge. Also, Kristen and I guested on Realm Maintenance. We did a little recording last week, and that show comes out on Tuesday. Check that out. It was really fun. I just check it out because it was a real big blast, and it was an honor to be on that show. So that was Realm Maintenance, and that episode's coming out on Tuesday, I believe. Did I get it all, Kristen?
I think you got it all.
Great. This was an awesome episode. Hopefully we get to see Mengsk in the game because I know a lot of people out there are really, really hoping that he makes it in. So with that being said, we're going to call it there, and we will see you all in the real world.